Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to go over my top 5 tips I think every single Zilean player needs to know. Now, my goal behind this video is to make you a better Zilean player, as well as to give you a better understanding of the champion as a whole. Now, I put timestamps at the top of the page as well as in the description, so when you are scrolling at that line down below, it should break it up into different sections where you are able to skip to a certain tip that might be interesting to you, or skip over a tip that you might already have a pretty good understanding of. I really value your guys' time. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the Discord or the Twitch. That is linked down below. And with all that out of the way, let's get right into the video. Alright, and jumping into tip number 1 for Zilean, it is really important to understand where you can really heavily carry team fights and really amplify the strengths that are provided to your kit when you are playing Zilean. If you didn't know, he is extremely good at controlling particular areas in fights. So you always want to look to contest objectives when you are at an even or ahead game state when you are playing Zilean, because you are so strong in just really manipulating the fights to where you want to be when you are playing Zilean. So always make sure that you are setting yourself up in these certain areas where you can look for choke point team fights that are really going to allow you to affect the fight quite heavily. So this is done by obviously getting good vision. If you're running Glacial Augment, the Twin Shadows is a great ability that I think can really help you even set up your Q bombs more. But just your ability to get off these really big AoE stuns is going to come in clutch when you are playing Zilean. So always look for your just increased potential when you are fighting in these choke points on Zilean. And that will wrap up tip number 1. Okay, and jumping into tip number 2 for Zilean, something that can be a little bit strange, but is really fun and something that you can look to do when you are in a pretty solid state, or maybe you have a gank coming and you have numbers advantage. You can look to overextend a little bit with this type of playstyle, and this is a little bit of the suicide Zilean gameplay. So, as you know, you only have the one offensive ability, so missing this can be really devastating when you are playing Zilean. Say you hit one bomb, but you miss the second one. Picking up the second bomb and bringing it over to the enemy can be a really impactful way to look to play out the fights when they have very little threat on you. I very rarely see players take advantage of this in the lower elos, so always make sure that you are doing this when you are under very low threat. Maybe you're playing against a Twisted Fate in lane that has very poor dueling potential, and you have a jungler coming to help you, and you just need that little bit more of damage. This can really help you when you are playing Zilean, and sometimes running at yourself or running at them and then throwing a bomb on top of yourself on top of the other bomb is a decent way to get a stun if you are just really struggling hitting a champion from more of the max range shots when you are playing Zilean. This can be a really good way to guarantee a stun. Maybe it's a melee champion that is looking to really get on top of you constantly. Throwing a bomb on top of yourself, slowing the enemy, and then throwing another bomb on top of yourself is a really good way to get a stun, and you can get the double bomb blast off as well. So it's kind of a weird tip used in only very niche situations, but I thought it was something really fun that I thought I should mention with you guys, and that will wrap up tip number 2 for Zilean. Alright, and jumping into tip number 3 for Zilean, I want to talk about a really important stat that you should be getting maxed out, I think, in every single game when you are playing Zilean. Now, this is just a random assortment of items that I like on Zilean. This is in no way a certain build you should be looking to play, but I really want to talk about how important 45% CTR is when you are playing Zilean. Because of the low cooldown of the Chrono Shift, you are able to get off 2 Chrono Shifts in team fights, and when you have a little bit of AP, you're getting people back up to close to full health. So what I want you guys to really look to do is extend team fights if you can, with just making them longer, whether it's slowing down a diver, increasing the speed of an ally that is looking to maybe kite around a little bit, using your Glacial Augment to maybe kite them out for a little bit of time, and really try and buy as much time when you are playing Zilean so you can get off that second Chrono Shift. Also, with this playstyle, you really want to be just throwing your Chrono Shift on the first person that is going to die in your team fight. You don't want to be saving it for the extremely high value target unless there's some extenuating circumstances like a Rengar that is just looking to pop on your ADC every single time, and this will allow you to get off a double chrono shift, which is just really game breaking when you are playing Zilean. Now it's at 33 seconds here, but this is not with a ultimate hunter. If you had ultimate hunter, this could get even lower to just an absurd point of CDR on the chrono shift, where it might even get down into the 20s and close to what some basic skills cooldowns are. So always look to get max CDR if you're looking to carry in late game team fights with Zilean. And that will wrap up this tip. Okay, and getting into tip number 4 with Zilean, I'm going to go over 3 different kind of playstyles when you are playing Zilean, and how you can look to use the different setups to really suit your playstyle. Now, my favorite is the Glacial Augment, because it really allows me to really provide offensive and defensive power. It allows me to peel for my teammates with the Glacial Augment slow field, as well as look for picks with my slows and with my twin shadows, and it really just provides me a healthy balance of what I want to do for the current game state. Now, the second setup would be a Summoner Ares setup. Now, this is going to be extremely strong because it provides you with a shield when you are time warping your allies, or you're time warping yourself. You are able to get a Ares shield, and that can be quite beneficial in certain situations. As well as Zilean has a pretty decent auto attack range and can proc those Ares pretty easy, and it also gives you a little bit more damage than the Glacial Augment build. So if you like a little bit more of a poke playstyle, that might be the one for you. And finally, the one that I would probably recommend the least, there are a few people that look to play the Guardian Keystone that gives shields to nearby allies when damage is done to them. Now, the reason why I don't like that one as much is just because I think that the damage that you are able to prevent with the Glacial Augment is going to be a lot more valuable than what you are able to prevent when you are using the Guardian Shield. However, this can be beneficial in certain situations where maybe you are getting poked down a lot by a long-range champion like a Varus and a Xerath, and just getting close to your teammate, and proccing that shield on them might be beneficial in those situations. So pick the one that you seem to like. I would recommend that maybe the newest players just try out Aerie and then move into Glacial, and then maybe if you are just a really heavy support Zilean player, try out the Guardian in very niche situations. And that will wrap up this tip for Zilean. Alright, and getting into the final tip, I just want to give you guys something really quick before we jump into team fighting, and that is how to use your time in the bottle passive. It is an extremely strong passive that really comes down to your decision making and can be extremely impactful in different team fights, as levels are power when you aren't playing League of Legends. So what I want you to do is keep an eye generally on how different champions are performing and who you think it would be most beneficial on to give that time in a bottle. Now, in general, champions that are extremely close to a ultimate threshold, say they're level 5 and you're able to level them up to 6, is going to be a huge jump in power. So you always want to look for those breakpoints. Those are at level 5, level 10, and level 15. Those are great times to use time in a bottle on a champion, as well as champions like mages that are ability based are going to get a little bit more out of levels than champions that are more auto attacked based, because they get the immediate power of the stronger spell that they're able to throw out. So always look to prioritize mages. And then you also want to bring into your consideration is how your allies are performing. So you have someone that's feeding, but hey, I can proc a time in a bottle and give them an extra level. It might not be the best way to go about it. Maybe you want to look to give your passive procs to champions that are performing pretty well, or that really that you know can scale up quite heavily. So champions like Kassadin can be a huge priority when you're playing Zilean. Maybe playing Zilean support and there's a Kassadin in the mid lane. Once they get to level 16, it is pretty much one of the easiest champions to play, and you just destroy the enemy team. So always look out for those kind of breakpoints when you are playing Zilean. So with that kind of mini tip out of the way, let's get into team fights and how you should look to play them out. So the last thing you want to do when you are playing Zilean, when you have as much control as you do in team fights through the stuns, the speed up, the slow down, even if add on top of that the GLPs, is the enemy forcing your ultimate on yourself. You always want to be keeping a really safe distance when you are playing Zilean. I like playing pretty much in the back here, and pretty much at my max bomb range is where I like to just kind of position myself in the different team fights. And how you want to look to do this is when the enemy team commits. So You don't want to be throwing out your bombs when maybe just a Fizz Q's in, but he can then E out. You want to be looking for really heavy commits, something like a Malphite ult, something like a Vi ult, where they're going to stay in after they go in. That is when you want to be throwing out your double bombs. And then you want to be using your time warp. You should be thinking about this before the team fight happens. Who are the priority targets in team fights? If you have a Fed Jinx, this is a person you want to time speed up. If there is an enemy diver that is something like a really strong Aurelia or Jax, this is the person that you really need to slow down in team fights. So you want to look at your time warp as how can I get as much out of this ability as possible, and that is going to be on the really premium targets in team fights. And then obviously I already covered how you want to look to use out your chrono shifts in team fights, but this is in general how you want to look to position when you are playing Zilean, as you are usually quite squishy unless you're going something like a Rod of Ages and maybe a Leandre's like really health heavy build. And that will wrap up my final tip, guys. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the Discord or the Twitch link down below. And as always, guys, take it easy.